Fishbone stitch. It's a little bit like the flat stitch, but the overlap isn't as big. And we use it at a steeper angle and makes this kind of cool braided effect down the middle. It looks like a herringbone braid or a herringbone pattern if you're familiar with that. It's really good for leaves or other shapes that have a point on one end. You can use it for other things, but it lends itself to that little point. So what you do is you're going to start at the narrowest spot. And on this one, you're going to go down at more of an angle. So in order to start that angle, you're actually going to start right in the middle. And you are going to take a stitch directly down. So you can see on this one, I changed my mind on the shape, so sorry about that. But you can see I made a little leaf shape, and I drew the center line of the leaf. And that's important. That's going to help guide me and keep me even, so my center line isn't wavy, although I could make it wavy intentionally if I wanted. So I'm going to take my first stitch just a little bit ways down that center line. And then I'm going to come up, and it doesn't matter what side I start on. I'm going to see if I can do this upside down for you. I'm going to come up right next to the top of that stitch where I'd come up the very first time. Right there. And I'm going to be crossing my center line on these stitches. I'm not going to make as big of an overlap as the herringbone or as the flat stitch. I'm just going to go right over it. Okay. And then I'm going to come up right on the other side of it. You gotta take your time, make sure you're coming through at the right spot. And over there. Okay. Sorry, I caught my steps in the thread because it's a long thread, and when you use long threads it catches things, and then that gets annoying. But it's also annoying to run out of thread halfway through a stitch, so you gotta figure out what is least annoying for you. So I took one stitch down and then one stitch up there, one stitch up here. My next stitch is going to be back down to that center and right up next to it. And these are really tiny, so I'm going to take a couple and then I'm going to pause and fill it in a little bit so you can see what it looks like in bigger shape, okay? But the center line, I'm always coming up right next to or on that center line. And then I'm going to the outside. And right here it's kind of making a nice tall overlap because the stitches are tiny in, right? So I started, that stitch went from there to there, so I'm going to start right down here on this side of the center line. And again, right to the edge. From the center line. So I'm partway through my herringbone stitch, and you can see that this one you can also work from the top. If you're working this one from the top, you don't go across to the other side like we did on the other one. You're actually going to go to the near side. So if I were to go from here, you can kind of see that down here you can see the ends of the two stitches. So if I come from here, I'm going to come up on the near side right below the last stitch. And then over here, I'm going to do the same thing. I'm going to come from here to the right underneath, right below the near side of that stitch. And I'm letting the fabric, or the floss, cross over itself in the middle, and that makes that cool little braiding effect. So I'll do a few stitches from the top so you can see. So if I come from here to, oops, right about there. And here to right down there. Well, try not to make loops of our fabric or our floss. I tend to. So I'm going again from here to right below. So it's on the near side. If I'm starting on the outer left, then I am coming up on the inner left of my center line. I'm not crossing over like that. The thread is crossing over, but my stitch itself is not. So here I'm going from my right, your left, my right to my right, and from left to left, right to right. Nona, come hit pause.
Stop it?
Mm-hmm. Is it stop?